I was ready. Kick us off, Keith.
Okay, well, John, I guess what we all want to talk about is Rugby Championship.
Yeah.
And obviously, big clash starting this weekend. How do you see the Rugby Championship this season?
So Rugby Championship is always a big part of the influence of a championship is who you face at home, and so I think it's always easier when you're facing the All Blacks at home, and so this year we've got them away twice. I think the good news is that we've got the start to our championship is at home against Australia, and again we've got an Australian team that's come off 3 really tough tests and have actually been really competitive. The margins were small. Actually, a series that probably could have pulled off as well. And it doesn't matter who you play in that June test period. Any team of the All Blacks, Australia or South Africa that gets to play against the Lions comes into the championship a little bit sharper than anyone else because they've had that battle hardness sort of drilled into them, and Australia have stepped up. I think the whole world was expecting it to be an absolute whitewash, but it was a really competitive series. So we've got a team that's coming here. Granted, they're coming to Ellis Park first, which is a difficult venue for them, but they've probably had to rev a little bit higher than our guys have had to rev in their June test match series. So I think South Africa needs to realise that we're up against a team that it's been a lot of spoken about where Australian rugby is, but they've answered a lot of those calls in the last 3 test matches against the Lions. And so I think we've got a proper test match, and I do believe that South Africa has got enough to be able to overcome that. But it is going to be, I think the first test will be the tougher of the 2. And it really comes down to the fact that the most difficult part about the championship is where you sit in World Rugby. South Africa's been the number 1 team for 2 World Cups in a row. They win more tests than anyone else, and that brings an amount of pressure. So I think that this group is fed nicely on that kind of pressure, in terms of being able to protect that number 1 status and sort of world champions back to back. So I do think our team will deliver, and I do think that they will know what the challenge is. But I think it'll be a lot tighter than we think it'll be.
But John, there's been a bit of a changing of the guard up front, on the front row. You've got Kitsi, unfortunately, with the neck injury. Malherbe is coming to the end of his career. What do you think of the new front row guys, Asenati coming through, Van der Merwe? Where do they rate in your estimation?
Tight 5 in general is it's always an amazing point of reference for South Africa. We thought about we go back. We were wondering who was ever going to be the next Bakkie Botha, and now we've got Eben, who's the highest test captain Springbok in South African history. So this new crew has stepped up. They've obviously learnt and played and been in the same squad with a whole bunch of legends. And the difficulty is that it's not about do you think they're good enough. It's around who's actually going to get an opportunity to be able to take their chance. And you've seen the rotational system around the front row, and obviously Frans Malherbe is arguably the best title we've ever had. And then you see every guy that gets a chance in that number 3 jersey takes every single second as if it's the last in his life. So, yeah, if you compare us to the rest of the world in terms of front row stock, we are certainly privileged in terms of the kind of beef that we've got to pick from. Asenati has been playing phenomenally well for the Lions for so long, and has used every single opportunity he's played for South Africa really well. He's been phenomenal. So I think I'll do what my mom said, is answer a question with a question. Has anyone that's come in to replace a Kitso for a Frans Malherbe let South Africa down? And the answer is no. They all step up.
Because eventually, at the end of the day, that's where a World Cup is. I know that Tony Brown's come in and he's trying to teach the guys some new skills, but unlock those skills that they've maybe repressed previously. But it's still the type 5 that's going to go to 2027. They have to do the job up front to to defend that.
Yeah. I mean, you're pitching to the choir, so any front row is going to tell you that the game is won and lost in the front row, and I think that is a massive part. It's George Green was talking earlier about it's much easier to play going forward than it is to play going back, and your tight five and your front row specifically, they're the people that are in the boxing ring that get to throw the first punch or take the first punch. And if you are able to get ascendancy up front, it makes everything else easier. It makes your defense easier. It makes your attack plan through the new way they want to play with Tony a lot easier. Going backwards is very difficult to implement your plan from an attack point of view. So, yeah, it's always going to be paramount in the game of rugby, and I hope it stays that way.
I guess the next big question we have to ask is, if you were the captain and you had to say as to who your number 10 was going to be, but Andre Pollard, Moni Lebok, Sasha Feinberg. I mean, it's a wealth of references. Who would be the person that you would say must take the box forward?
Yeah, again, I mean, when last were we in that position in terms of Flyhalf? And Flyhalf is your sort of quarterback of the NFL. He plays a massive role. He manages the game, and if he has a good day, the team has a good day. So when last did we have the ability to ask that question around who do we pick out of three guys? I remember in my career there was often times where we had to turn 9s into 10s and make a plan at 10, and now we've got three world-class players, one a youngster with the X-factor kind of talent that's shown massive promise, Moni Lebok is probably one of the best attacking fly halves, and then Andre, who's a veteran, dead-eyed dick in terms of getting his kicks over the poles. So the beauty is, it's not up to us, it's up to Rassi to decide which one of them is best suited for the opposition they were playing.
John, on the Rugby Championship, given the luxury of having won 2 back-to-back World Cups, do you agree that the pressure is different in the Rugby Championship when it could be seen as collateral damage, Rassi trying to build something new perhaps?
There's collateral damage in every test you play, and whether you're playing a team that's rated in the top 3 or you're playing a team that's just outside the top 10, the opportunities of loss are probably more so when you're playing against teams that are not in that top 3. So championship is a special tournament. It's in our terms, I guess sometimes we arrogantly talk about it around the fact that we are up against the best of the best, and South Africa, I think, will forever and a day rate the All Blacks as our ultimate opponent, and it's for good reason. All Blacks have been a phenomenal team for 2-3 decades, and it's one of those things where championship, if you don't have a championship and you don't play in those pressure games, you don't learn those lessons under pressure. You don't understand the taste of what it is to lose a tight test match, and what you have got to do to recover from that. And championship tests every single team. Between the 4 teams, every single test, it feels like a playoff game in a World Cup. So it's a phenomenal opportunity. I don't think there's ever been a team that's disregarded any one of those tests as being in the way of the ultimate prize, which is the World Cup. Everyone wants to win the championship every single year.
John, just to say,
What you're still busy talking about opponents, what was the greatest or toughest opponent that you've ever faced, and what was so formidable about it?
We played against a pretty spectacular All Black team. We were captained by Richie McCaw, who was probably one of the best competitors, one of the best captains, and they had players across the board over our era of being in a Springbok team. We were up against some of the best All Black players in their history, and so that was always the special game. As a captain, to go up against Richie, played 148 tests. I think he's got a 90+ win rate. There was always a big moment, and to be able to test ourselves and against them was a privilege.
John, just going back to what you said at the beginning. So when you guys came off your British and Irish Lions series, was your sort of overall feeling not one of that was sort of the season highlight and now you're coming down a bit, but you were actually more sort of energized for the rest of the year?
Yeah, it was a unique experience because hardly any of us had ever experienced the Lions series, and it was a tough series. I mean, they could have gone either way. That 2009 series. So what it did was it gave us a huge amount of confidence. So to be able to go into a championship, we had to either go, the job is done against the Lions, and does the championship really matter? But as a group, all you want to do is win every single game. So we beat the All Blacks for the first time at home and the second time at home, and then having the opportunity to be able to go 3 in a row was something that we sort of built up as something that hadn't been done for a very long time in South Africa. So it's weird. Like, you think every single highlight is the pinnacle. You win a World Cup in 2007, yet that group was hungry to beat the Lions, and then you beat the Lions and you think, oh, what about doing the All Blacks 3 in a row? That seems like a pretty cool idea. And so, I don't know, it's just, I guess the best teams, the best sports people, best businessmen, they just want to keep winning.
I was looking at you guys, when you walked in earlier, and I realized that none of the Centurions ever had a proper go at coaching. Is there a reason why you never?
Coaching is hard.
100 kids.
Like, I often say to people, because I get asked around coaching all the time, like, it's such a hard job, because you're managing a group of alpha males, and you want to succeed, and you've got 6 days of the week where you're in charge, and then on game day you don't really have a lot of influence, and there's other factors. There's the rules, the run of the bounce of the ball, a referee's call. There's so many things that you sort of can't bank on. So I always say I just don't think it's for me. I also think I had my time, and I saw what coaching did to all the coaches that I had. So if you see me coaching, I've either made more money than I ever need, or I've lost every single cent.
John, what do you think of the hybrid player? Is that the evolution of union?
Without a doubt, it has been the evolution in the last couple of years, and Rassie certainly brought that into the fray in terms of building that hybrid player. The thing is, being on top is hard because everyone's coming for you. If you keep on doing the same thing when you're at the top, you're eventually going to lose. If you don't change, you don't innovate, you don't think about how to change the game, someone's going to chase you and take your spot. So I think that's where Rassie's been incredible. He's innovated and he's created this hybrid player. But I'm almost certain that if and Rassie would know this, if he wants to continue to be the best coach in the world, he's got to keep on figuring out how to change the game, how to innovate, how to bring in the things that make a key difference that other teams haven't thought about. So for now, absolutely. In our day, it was around kicking territory and being good under the high ball and getting that ball back. And then the All Blacks, they responded in 2009 after losing 3 games in a row. They became really good at catching the high ball and attacking from that ball that they received. So they then avoided lineouts because we were good in the lineouts, and we weren't fast enough to respond. So trends and innovation are part of the game, and it's the coach and the team that stay ahead of that, keep changing, and keep other teams guessing, that stay on top.
Was there ever a time when you guys were training when you did stuff like pot lifting in the middle of the? Was that ever discussed?
No.
Those type of trick plays, or is Test match rugby maybe a little bit too conservative? Is breaking the mold in that tactical sense important for Test rugby?
Breaking the mold is different to innovating. So sometimes breaking the mold is around keeping the opposition guessing, but innovation around how you play in terms of other teams being reactive to how you present yourself for 80 minutes is important. Every now and again, you do think about bringing something in different, but if it goes wrong and you lose, then the question from your side is very different. Like, why did you do something different?
Bit of a light-hearted one. I know you spoke a bit about that build-up of Jake White. Is there one Test match out of your 100-odd that stands out the most?
It will always be 20th of October 2007. We had a 4-year period where we worked pretty hard to get to that stage. So when the final whistle went, I was extremely relieved. I wasn't happy. I was relieved that we'd been able to get through 4 years of toil and that our plan had worked and that our squad had come together. So, yeah, that was a pretty special moment. Toughest moment, probably losing my 100th test. Yeah, at FNB in Soweto. I'll never forget. I missed the tackle on Nono, and I had him around the ankles, and he slipped out because he came out of his boots, and I was laid on the floor with his Adidas boot and it said Ma with the New Zealand flag, and 3-4 phases later there was a try to win the game and lose your 100th test. So again, I was devastated. I was super emotional, and but my wife again taught me a great lesson. She said, "You can let one test ruin 100 that you've played." So another lesson.
John, thank you so much. I need you.